before the show. You are here on C Major before the show. Thank you so much for tuning in today. It's Saturday night, and in our last episode last Saturday, we found D, E, and A chords. And so we are giving you a little bit more to listen to this evening and also to play on the piano. And we also gave you a sequence to practice using C, F, and G chords. So over at C Major's classroom, we offered you some suggestions for putting those chords to use. And so maybe you have a chance to take a look, or maybe you had a chance to take a look, but we hope you were able to go over there and take a look at the homework. So in today's episode, we will cover minor chords. It's now time to make C, F, and G, D, E, and A minor. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for tuning in. You're here on Spreaker. Thank you for listening, parents and friends, Spreaker listeners. I'm your host, C Major Porter, and tonight is a special night because for the first time in the Piano for Parents series, I'll share with you some personal tidbits. But first, let's get started with the Music Making and Wellness Club roll call. If you hear your name, please raise your hand by sending us a tweet to let us know that you are listening at C Major Porter 1. So tonight's roll call: Heidi, Henley, Teresa, Valdemar, Allison, Fumi, Victor, Don, Larry, Barrington, Andre, Frank, Young, Edison, and Lisette. Give yourselves a round of applause for listening. Give yourselves some cheer for tuning in to tonight's podcast. So for tonight's podcast, we're going to do things a little bit differently tonight. I'm going to actually be playing a little bit and also talking with you about some of the things that we'll talk about over at the C Major radio show. So you'll want to tune in over there because we have more of a theme going over there with sounds of heartbreak, but I'll say a little bit more about that later. So we've talked so far about C, F, and G chords. And we talked about D, E, and A chords. I did give you a little bit of a sequence. And then tonight, what we're going to do is talk about how to make those chords minor. So if you have a chance, pull out your chord chart. And what you'll see is how to outline a minor chord on the piano. So I don't have my chord chart in front of me tonight, but I do have my piano next to me. So you'll hear me play a C minor chord, and then you'll hear me go over to an F minor chord, and then you'll hear me go over to a G minor chord, and then a D minor chord, and then an E minor chord, and then an A minor chord. Okay. So you also hear some music playing in the background. That's because I haven't stopped the music yet. So let me stop the music so you can hear what I'm doing over here on the piano. And so I know there's a lot of curiosity, too, about the piano that I'm using. So I use a digital piano when I'm demoing online. And then in person, I demo on real acoustic pianos as well as digital pianos and sometimes keyboards, depending on the situation. So let me just go over that again. I'm going to play an octave lower, C minor, F minor, and then G minor, and then D minor, E minor, and A minor. Okay, so those are the minor chords we're talking about, and I'm going to trust that you can find this on your chart. So again, I don't have a chart in front of me. I'm just using a piano tonight, and I'm also using the sounds of GarageBand. So if you happen to have an Apple computer or a laptop or desktop, whatever the case may be, you can pull that up, and then you can do the same thing. So I use a MIDI connection to get the sound that I wanted for tonight. So it's just GarageBand, stage piano. I went over to pianos and keyboards for my software instrument, and then I'm playing a grand piano on stage. So I have that highlighted, so that's the sound that you're hearing. So far I've played in the middle range on the piano, and then I played an octave higher. So now what I'm going to do is go over to the piano and play in the lower octave range so you can hear what that sounds like. And feel free to compare because you know exactly where I'm pulling the sound from. So, okay, so here I am, C minor. Okay, and G minor. So I think what's happening is that it's combining the sounds. So I have sounds coming from my speakers as well as from the keyboard itself. So let me just see if I can turn up the sound here a little bit more. See if I can increase that. It may be all the way max. Let's see what I have here. Let's see, is my mouse working? Okay, good. All right, so now I'm turning it up a little bit, so you should hear a little bit more sound coming from the computer, from the speaker, from my monitor. Okay, just getting myself a little situated here. Okay, so let's try this again. So, okay, so a little bit more sound coming. F minor, and then G minor, D minor, E minor, and then A minor. Okay, so hopefully you can hear that a little bit better. And then just to spell it out, so a C minor chord would be spelled C, E flat, G. If you happen to be looking at that chart or that poster that you have that spells it out with letters, then you can match that. And then F, A flat, C is for F minor, and then G minor is G, B flat, D. That's your G minor chord spelled out. And then let's go to D minor, D, F, A, and then E, G, B, and then A minor is A, C, E. Okay, so I have demoed this in previous podcasts, and so what I want to do tonight is just show you a little bit of a drill, and then what I'll do is just post this over at CMajor's classroom a little bit later on. Also, just to give you a heads up, we will be podcasting a little bit later than usual, as we are here today on CMajor Before the Show, and over at the CMajor Radio Show. See us over there at 9:30 Eastern Time tonight for our Sounds of Heartbreak. So I really associate minor chords with sadness. If you're teaching younger students, sometimes you say, you know, the difference between a happy sound and a sad sound. You can say that. But for our purposes here, we'll just say that it has more of a melancholy flavor to the sound, if you will. And so that's what we're doing. So now I'm going to go through the drill. So the drill would be to play C, C minor, back to C, and then go F, F minor, back to F, and then G, G minor, back to G, and then let's go D, D minor, back to D, and then E, E minor, back to E, okay, and then A minor, back to A. Okay, so hopefully you were able to get all of that. Okay, so I'll just play it again. This time I won't say anything so you can hear just the sounds itself. Okay, so. Okay, so hopefully you were able to hear all of that. And now what I'm going to do now is go back over to my computer and see if I can choose a different sound, just so you know that I am doing this virtually. And not that my keyboard doesn't have other sounds, but sometimes it's better to use the software instead of using the sounds that are built into the keyboard. So far I've used grand piano on stage, just so you can hear the difference. Now I'm going to do the same thing using grand piano punchy. So I had a little bit more punch to that sound. Okay, so I'm just reaching over now, and I'm going to play in the middle register of the piano, so. Okay, so that lets you know that you can change the tone quality of the color. Now let's use a sound that I actually like using, swirling electric pianos. See what that sounds like. Hear the difference? So you really can't choose the sound that you want. It's really up to you how you want to do it. There's something in here called whirly. We can go there too. WHIRLY, whirly. Let's see what that sounds like. Okay. All right, and let's go back to the top here, smoky clav. I'll play that next, but this is electric piano. And I think what you also may be hearing, you may be hearing a combination of the digital piano itself and then the software instrument. So let's go to smoky clav. Let's see if that comes out. Okay, so if you like that sound, you can use that too. On my digital piano, I also have strings that I can use, and then you can choose some synth textures. Well, let's hear what strings sound like. Oh, we're still on clav. Let's see. Hollywood strings, let's go there. See if I can bring that up. Oh, I see what's happening. So everything is layered. Okay, so that's just the way it's set up. So no worries. Now we're going to go back to, let's go to synth pads, which some of my students like to play around with these sounds on their own digital pianos. So synth pad, let's just see what we get there. Let's go to Cosmic Reflection. That's kind of a cool sound. Okay. So what I want to do is just encourage you to find the sounds that are pleasing to you and just play around this week with minor chords versus major chords and come up with your own sounds that inspire you to explore on the piano. Okay, so what we're going to do now, I'm going to take a little bit of a music break, and I will be back in a moment. But thank you for tuning in. You're listening to C Major Before the Show. Before the show. Thank you so much for tuning in this evening. I'm your host, CMajor Porter, and we are bringing you some ideas for playing minor chords and exploring minor chords on the piano. And hopefully you'll have a chance to try those out at home. And we want to continue that discussion because before I didn't have my charts in front of me, but I brought some charts that we've been using here on the podcast. So if you happen to have your charts that show the red dots, just know that to find the chords that we talked about, just go to the major column first and then go to the second column, which shows you all of the minor chords spelled out. So the ones that we've been focusing on, we've been focusing on C, F, and G, and then you'll see on this chart, you'll see a C followed by a little m, which means minor, and then go to the F, and the F followed by a little m, and you'll see the red dots there as well. So for the F chord, for instance, so you just see note, space, note, and the red dots are altered and then alternating, and then you'll see F, E flat, C. So it won't tell you the letters if you're looking at this particular chart. You just see the dots. So you can just follow the black and white key relationship and just play these chords. And also just to remind you that this chord chart does not give you any fingering guidance at all. So if you want something like that, I would say see your music professional, someone who can help guide you on how to place your hands on the keyboard. So I'm going to do some shout outs in just a few moments. And I will mention one of my students that I work with today who is an adult. And we did this today. It was very nice to work with this person because they were very open to the different ways that you can play a triad and to divide the triad between two hands. So I was very happy to see that sometimes students have their own ideas for how to play the triads, how to play the chords on the piano. But we were able to be versatile today, so that was very encouraging. Now the next chart shows you, and this one that says keyboard chord chart, and then this is the one that features 120 most commonly used chords. So on this chart you will see the letters. So as I've been calling out the letters, you will see that. Just know that every page is dedicated to a letter. So if you see C, then look over in the column where it says major and just go C, E, G. And then beneath that you'll see minor written in lowercase, but in parentheses you'll see a capital M, and then you'll see the chord spelled out in letters C, E flat, G. But then you have to turn the page to get to the other chords. So, okay, I just want to make sure I go over some of the things that you might see as you are out and about and shopping around for charts that work best for you. And don't forget about your key stickers. So if you are in the market for key stickers, feel free to put those on. What I like about these stickers is that it's for use with all keyboards. So even acoustic pianos, you can put them on and it's safe, and then just peel them right off. And then they also are reusable. But what I like is that once you start getting into accidentals or talking about flats and sharps, that the stickers will show you that. So in the upper corner, you will see either a flat or a sharp, sometimes both or just one or the other. And the arrows point to where the black keys are. So it gives you a little bit more guidance of how to locate these as you are spelling them out as individual notes or as chords. And then the other chart I would like to point to this evening. So I have my bag of chord charts. So I'll pull out the one that I really like. It's called the Original Piano Chord Finder. So that one has nice instructions about how to use this book. So we'll just go with where it says C chords. And so that starts on page 6 of this book, and then you just see C major. So it's a page dedicated totally to C major chords, and then the symbols are spelled out, and then the next page over is a whole entire page dedicated to C minor. So I really like the layout of this book. They really try to be thorough. But again, they're using dots. They're not using letters to spell everything out. What I also like, too, is that they give you the grand staff. So if you are learning to write chords on the staff, you can see right here how to go ahead and practice that as well. You just literally copy what you see, and everything is written out in ovals. So you have the whole note, which is written on the staff, and all of the notes are in whole note form to spell out the chord. And then you'll also see the bass note written in the bass clef. So it might be worth it to get this type of book, or if you can, just get multiple copies of chord charts and posters and books, and just do like a side-by-side comparison, which is what we're doing here on the podcast. So it doesn't hurt to have lots of information in front of you. Okay, so hopefully you were able to follow all of that. And we're going to take another music break here in a few moments, but I do want to give some shout outs before we go, and that is to some of my new students that I was able to meet this week. So very excited about my new students. So shout out to all of the new students. Very glad to be working with you and helping you achieve your music making goals. It's very exciting when you meet someone that really wants to do something new at the piano and you can help to guide them. So a shout out to my old students. Now, what do I mean by old students? First of all, what do I mean by new students? New students meaning someone who's just starting at the piano, or they're coming back into it and then they're making a commitment for the new year to do something at the piano. Old students could be anyone from 2 months old to 3 months old. I would say that you are at least about 8 weeks into piano playing. So we have to say old and new, because a lot of times my students will feel very experienced after 8 weeks, believe it or not, and then they think they can go off and conquer the world when it comes to music making and piano playing, and I like that. I like that they feel strong enough to go out and do that. But I would say after about 12 weeks, you might start to feel a little bit old and a little bit more knowledgeable than someone who's just starting out. So that's what I mean. So new students and old students, I'm giving shout outs to. And also I want to give shout outs to my students who are using a piano method. So I want to distinguish between the students that are studying just to learn how to play songs versus the students that really are sticking with a method. So shout out to those students. So something else I'm very excited about too, I've been talking about it for the last couple of weeks, and that's the Baby Shark students. So now they have their own category, the Baby Shark students. This is for any students that are out there learning to play the Baby Shark song, which seems to be really, really popular. So all you have to do is just do a search on the internet, look up Baby Shark. There's a Baby Shark dance, there are Baby Shark piano versions out there that you can learn to play. You can download from different sheet music sites and you can learn to play it, or just go to YouTube and look at it there and learn from the video. But it seems that I'm getting more and more students learning to play the Baby Shark song. So shout out to all the Baby Shark students. And I just want to give a big cheer for all students this week. So big cheer for all students. Yes, I think it's great. Keep doing the good work that you're doing. You're doing the thing that a lot of people wish they could take the time to do. And so I think that's a really great thing. So I'm going to take another music break right here. And then I'm going to be back in a moment. We're going to come back with our social media poll. we're going to give just a couple of social media shout outs when I get back. And then we'll talk about the homework assignment a little bit further. We'll talk about that over at CMajor's classroom. But back in a moment. And you are here on C Major Before the Show. I'm your host, C Major Porter. So thank you so much for tuning in on this Saturday night. And we are talking about the social media poll that we want to introduce for this week. We've been kind of taking it easy online just to make it easy and simple for you to vote yes or no. And we'll just post a simple question. So look for that. Look for that over at Facebook. I'm going to post it over there. We also have CMajor's classroom items that we post over there. And we also started doing something new this week. So if you have a chance, check out our Facebook creator video that we're starting to put together. That's just to give you a little bit more visual to go along with the show. And so hopefully you'll find that helpful. It's just something that we're trying to add to give you a little bit more of a preview of what's coming up on C Major Before the Show. And then we also will post some things about the C Major radio show there as well. So I do have some social media shout outs that I'd like to give. I would like to say that I want to shout out TuneCore. I'm shouting out TuneCore this week. Big shout out for TuneCore. So anyone who is an indie artist and you need to get your music out there, I recommend TuneCore. I know I have friends that use other platforms and other services, but I am shouting out TuneCore. Also, a shout out to Columbia University alumni, so shout out to them. Very strong presence on Twitter, so I'm always happy to see their postings and the things that they like over there, so big shout out. And I want to mention the homework assignment in a little bit more detail this week. Over at CMajor's classroom, what you're going to see some pictures, and then you're going to see an outline of the chord drill. So we might have posted that in the past, but I'm going to post it so that you will see everything segmented. So you'll see a C followed by the symbol for C minor, followed by C. I'm going to spell it out just like that and just put it in groups. So hopefully you'll be able to find it easily there and then just be able to follow along. So in a moment, I'm going to play a little bit more on the piano because I want to give you a chance to play with C major, basically. I would like to just play some sequences, just play some chord shifting and see if you can follow along. And not necessarily play along, but just hear what I'm doing. So that's what I mean by play with the C major. Just, it's supposed to be all fun. It's supposed to be, in good humor, a lot of the things that we do here. So sometimes we do laugh here about some of the things that are going on with the things that happen with students sometimes, but it's all meant to be in good fun. So the chord drill, we were talking about that. We're going to post it over at CMajor's classroom. And now I want to give you a preview of the story that we will be sharing over at the CMajor radio show a little bit later on this evening. And that is about the music of C major. So a lot of times my friends, family members, sometimes my fans, those who have come to the shows when I do those in New York, they're a little bit curious to know the story behind the music. And in the past, I've hesitated to say what that is because I just didn't want you to come to a show and feel sad. I remember seeing somebody post something on social media that says no one goes to a concert to feel sad. Well, that may be true, but in my case, I actually had audience members, fans, if you will, that were asking me to share a little bit more of the stories behind the songs themselves. And I think it's because of the way that I had the show structured. So maybe if I started off with something a little bit more upbeat and then delved into the songs and the stories, maybe I would have gotten a different request. But I'm still in the process of reshaping how I present the music and present the show. But I'm very excited that I have some questions that have been presented to me about the music itself. So basically, I used music making to help myself feel better. And so in the spirit of music making and wellness, I would just say try it and see what happens. I think it has something to do more along the lines of what you see happening with mindfulness. And I talked with someone who was really spreading the whole mindfulness message out there. And I said, well, where does music fit into all of that? And they said, it's all music. And so I think that if you're just mindful of how you're feeling when something happens to you, and then thinking about how you can put music with that, it kind of goes along, I think. I'm just simply offering an idea that music making can help with feeling better about yourself and your situation. And there may even be some health benefits to music making that you can take advantage of, especially here in 2019. So I would just encourage you to talk with your health professional and see what they think about that idea. We have so many ways of measuring how we feel throughout the day, and music may be a part of that. So I'm glad you're here tuning into the podcast, because I think that once you realize and just begin to recognize the power of music and music making and what music making can do for people, I think it just opens up a whole new world. I could just talk about it from a subjective point of view and anecdotal point of view, if you will. And all I can say is that as an artist, as CMajor, I was feeling moments of heartbreak. I was heartbroken. And this is not new information. Anybody that's followed the theme of the music of CMajor, you know it's heartbreak and wonder. And I've even said this in an interview once. I had a case of what can be called, quote unquote, unrequited love and loss. And it wasn't until I started to write my own music that I was able to get over my heartbreak. I knew how to sit down and play chords and how to play classical music. And basically I just combined the two. And I did overcome. And I outgrew the pain of rejection and sorrow, and started writing and recording and teaching and performing in New York City. And I'll be forever grateful that music became my career. So for you, it may mean using the piano to create exciting and interesting and satisfying music that has nothing at all to do with heartbreak. I think everybody's situation is different. I think how you handle situations is different. And so when it comes to recreational music making, the message I want to send is that I think that I want to be in that group of music professionals that will learn more about you and how to serve you properly when it comes to your own music making. I want to be there for that. And so I just believe there's a great deal we can do together, which is a big reason for this podcast. I really want to know what part of music you consider to be self-teaching, and what part of music do you consider that you need help from a teacher. Those are the questions that we pose here on the podcast. But when it comes to music making, there's a great deal we can do together. So before we take another music break, I just want to share with you that I didn't realize how touching the stories behind some of the songs that I write could be to listeners until I looked out into the audience. I was doing a show, and I saw one of the audience members just in a big ball of tears, if I could say it that way. She really was just touched by something that was either said or played, and I had a chance to ask her following the show what was so touching to her, and she just said it was just a combination of things. And then she just gave me a hug and just really encouraged me to tell the stories behind the music. So if you ever come to a CMajor show, just know I'm going to start with that. And then that same person later on just said, you know, I really love coming to the shows. I like your music. I really want you to think about maybe starting with something upbeat first, so that once you launch into this, that it has a little bit more meaning for the audience. So it's just a learning experience. You learn so much about what the audience expects, and I think it's to your benefit as an artist to really start to listen to some of the opinions that are out there about your music and your music making. So what I'm going to be doing later on at the CMajor radio show is just talking about the sequence of the chords and how I was able to put that all together. But thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I am going to take another music break, and I'm going to be back. But I'm glad you're here, and thank you for listening. And you are here on CMajor Before the Shows. Thank you so much for tuning in this evening. And we are featuring minor chords tonight. And what I want to do now is just take a little bit of time to play with you. So we're going to playfully call this segment Play with CMajor. And so what I'm going to do is just basically just flow between C, F, and G, and then D, E, and A. And then I'll go back and forth from major to minor. And then I may even play like a little bit of a short sequence, which may or may not sound like a song to you, but it's just all in great fun and just to see if you can start to hear where the changes are. So we're talking to recreational music makers, mostly on this podcast. So, of course, someone who is very familiar with chord changes would be able to hear where the changes are right away. But I have this question from a parent this week, and it was just really curious. I mean, their little music maker, let me say it like that, has been playing the piano for a little bit over a year. So the expectations of the parents are just so interesting that they want to know when certain talent will kick in. So they want to know when the talent of being able to hear music and then sit down and play that same music that you just heard, when does that kick in, or is that something that's natural? So what I will say to you, I think that it's possible to train yourself to play by ear. And certainly those pianists, self-taught pianists out there who play by ear would say the same thing, that it's possible for you to sit down and just listen to music and then just try to replicate it. Just play the way that it sounds to you. And then get with others who are doing the same thing. You can form your own community. And I've seen so many musicians who don't read music be able to successfully do that. And then on the flip side of that, I've seen musician friends of mine who read beautifully. They can read a score, but when it comes to just turning on music and then just playing what they hear, that's when the real challenge for them begins. So I think for everyone it's different, but I think that if you really, really work hard at learning to hear where chord changes are, that this can be done just over time, just really committing yourself to playing in that way and really hearing where the changes are. And then, of course, there's always music theory, which you can jump into. But what I'm going to do now, you're going to hear me just shifting from chord to chord. And so I just invite you to listen or just try to play along or just listen back to the podcast when you have time and then see if you can at least call out the changes. I'll say it that way. So my piano is going to sound, I'm sure, different than yours, but don't be intimidated by that. Just know that whatever you have is fine. And the main thing is just to really understand where the music is shifting. Okay? So now I'm going to step over by my piano. I'm going to turn down my recorded music here for a second. And just step over to my piano and play some music over there. Okay? Okay, so how did you do? Hopefully that was a fair way to present the chords. So basically I was going from C, F, and G, and then I went to D, E, and A. I think I did. And then C, C minor C, F, F minor F, G, G minor G, D, D minor D, E, E minor E, A minor A, and then I just played a sequence that I thought you might find a little bit challenging, starting on A minor, then going to G, and then going to F, then E major, and then back to A minor. So, music is something that you should try to have fun with. Sometimes I find that my students get a little bit anxious, or a mild way to put it, when it comes to music making, but I just try to encourage them and say, it's all fun. Just try to have fun with it. No one has to be perfect here. It's not about being perfect. But I do believe there's something called perfect practice. So if you follow the practice steps that you're given, then you'll have a better chance of having the musical outcome that you are looking to have. So I just like to encourage my students when it comes to that. So hopefully you were able to play along with the sequence that I gave you, and then again, just see us over at CMajor's classroom. Let us know if you have any questions. You can always find us on social media, and you can set up an appointment if you need to have me answer questions with you directly online. So I encourage that. We said something about that a few podcasts ago. And then don't forget that you can also take a look at the syllabus that we posted over at Music Glue, and it's available there for download, and there's no fee for the syllabus. So thank you so much for tuning in. Now, we are nearing the end of today's podcast, but what I want to do before we end today's podcast is take maybe at least one more music break, maybe two, we'll see. But I just want to pace myself a little bit differently today, because I want to give you time to really let this all sink in. This is all about you, encouraging you to bring your listening ears to the podcast each week, and also to start doing something new when it comes to music making that challenges you to grow. And let me say this too, when I'm talking about growth, I think there are a couple of ways to grow. You can grow outward, so that you become really full or filled with songs. You have a lot of songs in your library. So I have some students that choose to work that way. Or you can grow upward. So I like to think of someone who's growing upward as someone who's studying method. So you have layers, and all these layers are taking you up in an upward position. So it's more like vertical growth. And then the horizontal growth is just giving you a library of songs, is what I like to think of as more lateral. So it's just across the board. You have all of these songs under your belt. But you get to decide. You get to decide how you want to grow. I have some students that are convinced that they should not learn to read music and not be strong in music making when it comes to reading music, that they just want to stick with the chords. So that's another reason for the podcast and the Piano for Parents series, because I find that some parents are very interested in just playing in a very simple way on the piano. So we really want to encourage that. So now I'm just going to take a little bit more of a music break, and then we will come back and talk with you about recording yourself and the drill that you can use for that. Okay, so a little bit more of music for you to listen to, and then we'll be back in a moment. appreciate you being here. Give yourselves a round of applause for being here. The day was a little bit different, wasn't it? Seems like we paced ourselves a little bit more. And with the theme of minor chords, I kind of want to just take my time and just give you a chance to think about what you're playing for a change, rather than just breezing through all the information and then hoping that you caught on to everything that was said. Now, what I want to do for this last part of the show is just really encourage you to record yourself if you can. So record yourself this week. You can use your iPhone to do it. You can use another device. You can use an Android phone, whatever you have to make a recording of yourself playing, because I really believe in that. I believe that if you use some sort of recording device, that if you listen back to it, you can really start to hear how you are doing. And sometimes digital pianos will have a recording mechanism, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes you just have to connect it to a computer and then just record into software. You can do it that way too, but there are lots of ways to hear yourself and what you sound like, and don't be shy about it. I have some students that don't like to listen to themselves because they don't want to hear the mistakes, but it's not about listening to the mistakes. It really is, especially in the spirit of self-teaching, just listening to hear how you are doing. So thank you again for tuning in. We invite you to tune in next week as well. And so we hope to see you next week. Thank you so much for listening. And don't forget to tune in to CMajor, the CMajor radio show for Sounds of Heartbreak. That's a little bit later on tonight. In about an hour, we're going to be on. So for those of you who are not able to be with us today, just know that in today's episode, we focused on minor chords. So we want to provide you with support, and this is support for anyone who is looking to use chords in your music making. Some people think that online music lessons should be available free of charge. We're not charging you anything here. We're just sharing information, while others are willing to pay. So either way, we know that learning to play the piano can help with your socialization online. It can help with recreation. It can help with open discussions and forums about music literacy and what that takes. But one more thing I'd like to add is that if you're feeling sad and you want to use music as a way to help you through that, then just know that music can help with that. Sometimes when things happen in our lives, we want the outcome to be different or better or more than it already is. And there are different ways of working through that. But in my experience, music can really help. We may never know all of the reasons why things happen to us that are sad or that are unfortunate, but we can choose to keep well through it all, and I believe music can help with that. So music making, I believe, can help you with that. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Have a great night, and next week will be a new month. We'll be in the month of February, believe it or not, and it's a month of celebrating love, so we want to celebrate that too here on CMajor Before the Show, and we hope to see you then. I'll say a little bit more during the week about the music that you will be looking forward to and that we'll be looking forward to sharing with you. And we'll see you next week right here on CMajor Before the Show. Have a great evening and take care. Thank you for listening.